and all my stuff was still in a camera bag.
I saw that the show started really late.
Yeah. Yeah, we were only like 30 minutes late last week. So. And hey, this week I didn't forget to hit the go live button. So, with that, welcome to Talking Heads, everyone. Episode 289. Your once-weekly live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff.
I'm Rett.
Welcome to the show. You were ready for that one.
I said it as you were finishing, so I could be on time.
Thank you all so much for watching on this Wednesday night or in podcast form over on Anchor.fm or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. If you've never seen the show before, we talk beer, we talk tech, we talk games, pop culture, entertainment, sometimes some Star Trek. All super chats are read in the air, but if you really want to support the channel, head on over to craftcomputing.store, pick yourself up one of our snazzy new laser-etched pint glasses. Yes. Oh, and special feature, they're laser etched on the bottom as well to promote nucleation and refresh your head as you drink. Start drinking like a pro. Craftcomputing.store.
Honestly, I love refreshing my head as I drink.
Right?
You know what I'm saying?
Right?
Like, fresh head while you drink, it's the only way to go.
It really is. Really is.
100%.
Obviously, we do drink alcohol on the show, and if you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat, and we'll give some early show shoutouts as we go along. Last but not least, if you'd like to take part in the super secret chat and the even more super secret after party, think about joining the Patreon. Link is down in the video description. As a bonus, you'll get exclusive access to my Discord server, where you can chat with myself, John, Rett, Steve, all the hosts from Talking Heads, and join the awesome community that hangs out over there. Woo!
Wow.
We are live.
And I think you made up the 10 minutes.
They're about, yeah. How
is everybody doing out there?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
No, doing very well. Gosh. So many things up in the air right now. I'm taking a couple days off next couple of days. I'm building a deck.
What?
I'm building a deck.
I built a deck.
Did you? Well,
I just finished it today.
Well, come build my deck.
No.
Fair enough.
My deck wasn't that big. It wasn't that big.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of it. It looks great.
Yeah,
so.
no, we're tearing the deck off the front of the house tomorrow morning, and over the next 2 days, we're gonna rebuild the whole thing, completely redoing what it looks like, because we have a railing up around the whole thing right now.
Yeah.
And, we're actually taking off the front railing entirely, having steps go down to our lower yard, and then we're gonna fence in that lower yard, and so we have the whole space open out from our kitchen door. So that'll be really nice. We've got a fire pit to put up in there that we've had in the shed for months. We're gonna, and actually, what I want to do is cover the deck section eventually. So put up a little facade or gazebo type thing over the front of the deck, so we can barbecue in the winter and use that extra space. So
that's a really good idea. Dang. See, I had a little bit of just dead space, and in my backyard, part of what makes it really difficult is I got this big pool, and it sounds like, oh, Rhett, you're complaining about having a big pool. Yeah, it means I have this gigantically weird, unusable oblong space.
Right.
And we had this big dead spot, so we built a deck, but we still have this gigantic section of just dirt, and it's do we just put plants there? Do we put flower pots there? Somebody suggested a fountain today, which I thought was kind of neat, but it's that's maintenance too,
And it's still not usable space. It's just something cool to look at then.
Exactly, yeah.
My house, for as big as it is, it still has not quite enough usable space for entertaining and things like that,
right.
Because it's a split level house, and so half the house is where I'm at right now. It's below grade. It's where the bedrooms are at, daylight basement. Which is great, but there's no entertaining down here. Our living room is not huge. It's got a nice vaulted ceiling, which I like, but it's not huge. It's 19 by 14, which sounds big until you put a couple couches and a fireplace into a space. Our dining room and our kitchen are freaking tiny. They are beyond tiny. What's funny is most of the houses on this neighborhood have that same problem. It's like, really big bedrooms, moderate size living room, itty bitty cooking space.
Yeah.
So yeah, eventually we're going to expand the kitchen and the dining room and make that a much bigger, more functional space. But we're still talking a couple years at least down the road to get all that moving. Step 1 is rebuild our deck. Step 2, craft studios. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah. Anyway, I went ahead and cracked my first beer. This one is from Ex Novo. I've been really, really digging this one lately. Ryoshi, Japanese style rice lager.
That sounds really good.
It is delicious. If I have an opportunity to have a burger or a sandwich or like some kind of like medium lunch, this has been my go-to beer for that as of late. Like it's super light, refreshing, crisp, and goes amazingly well with almost anything.
I made a special trip over to the Benedictine Brewery this afternoon, and I was going to drink their Black Habit, which is a dark lager that I've had before on the show. Really delicious, really tasty, dark lager, lots of flavor, high ABV. But I've already had 2 of them this afternoon, so I'm switching it up to the Deschutes Fresh Squeezed IPA.
Oh, there you go.
Out of a can.
Yeah.
So I got to pump the brakes a little bit, or the end of the show will be a lot quicker than we think.
Yeah, so I mentioned the laser engraving on the bottom of the glass. By the way, we do these 100% in-house, cut right here in my garage. So we laser engrave the outside, and then we laser engrave a pattern on the inside of the glass. And so, see all those bubbles rising up? That never stops. And so your head and all your aromatics and whatnot is constantly being refreshed as you drink. In fact, a couple days ago, I had the first pint glass on a regular craft computing shoot, and I poured one of the flattest beers that I drink, which is the Founders All Day IPA. It's a 4.3% session pale. If anyone's ever poured one of those, the head just like dies immediately. I still had a head 20 minutes into that video. And I mean, look at this. This is a session lager, and it's same kind of thing, So.
Yeah, I saw you were talking about that in the video, and I didn't understand what you were talking about back then.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Here we go. Let me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Okay. See, this is when I almost need, like, John on the show or something. What's the science behind this?
The science behind this is it's a carbonated beverage. And if you provide a little space at the bottom of your glass, the Mentos and Coke thing where you drop, same thing. You're providing a little space for a bubble to form where the carbon dioxide will grab onto. And it's just big enough where it will release that bubble, and then another bubble forms, and then it will release that bubble, and another bubble
How
forms.
How big is big enough?
About that big.
And that's like a fraction of a millimeter.
Oh, yeah.
A fraction of a fraction.
The laser that I'm etching this with is a 0.06 millimeter dot. 0.06 millimeter is what it etches with.
Wow.
So, not very big at all, but it does a lot. And nucleated glasses are what you want to search for if you want something like this. And
when did you get the idea to do this?
About the time that I started thinking about doing pint glasses. And that's one of the reasons I wanted this laser, is it's a longer focal length. And so I can etch at the bottom of the glass without having to do anything funny.
Oh, and that's the new laser.
That's the new laser, right. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Fun stuff.
Yeah. And laser etching versus engraving. This is a controlled fracturing and binding
Melding
of the glass, correct. So it's that nice frosted look, but it's a porous surface because there are like little microfractures all through it. makes it kind of fun. Gives it a really nice texture. Like, I like this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's permanent. Like, this will never wear out. It's not
It's not
paint.
gonna wash off.
Right.
Huh. You know, I've been pretty impressed though. Like, I've got some of the. You remember those old Dairy Queen collectors glasses of the Blazers?
Oh, the old Blazers glasses. Yes.
Yeah, so I got a bunch of those. And like for years I was afraid to put them in the dishwasher, and eventually I was just like, who cares? You know what? If I need to, I'll just jump online and I'll buy more of these.
Yeah.
And I've been putting them into the dishwasher after every single use and not any wear and tear on these dang things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what did Dairy Queen do back then? You know,
I don't know.
Can't be good for the environment.
For those who don't know, these are the Blazers
Yeah.
Dairy Queen glasses. They're amazing. They're iconic. They're 1990 through 92 Blazers.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that I've never ever seen one in bad condition. Like now that you mention that, my brother-in-law has a full set, and
yeah, mine too.
he's not even a Blazers fan. It's just his family went to Dairy Queen a lot, and he wound up with a whole set of glasses. And then he goes, "Can I have these?" And they said, "Yeah, sure." And so he has the full set of 9 or whatever, and
I've got a
not
glass
one
that
of
I
them
don't
has
see here.
has a paint chip or an enamel break, or I've never seen a bad one.
No, and I'm telling you, yeah, I've got a glass that I don't see on here. I got what's
Let's
his
see,
name?
here's all of them.
Butchernet. I've got Buck Williams. Does that sound familiar? I don't know. Bucky.
Well, there's Uncle Cliffy. There's Rod Strickland. There's Terry Porter.
Do I gotta go upstairs and grab
Buck Williams?
Buck Williams?
There you go.
So I've got a Buck Williams one that's different, and he's wearing like a bomber jacket, and he's got his arms spread out, and he's
Really?
got a propeller, and he's like he's an airplane, and he's flying.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. God, I'm fighting every instinct I have to just run upstairs and grab it.
Grab it through it.
Yeah, I'm thinking. So they must have done multiple runs then, because I've seen. Because the set of 9 sounds right, but I feel like I've seen more, and I've got a different one than those.
John asks, any chance of getting a nucleated Pilsner glass? Actually, I am planning on carrying a whole lineup of glassware. One of my, sick passions, collectibles, whatever, I love glassware. I love different types of glasses because they were all made for different purposes. And a Pilsner glass is different from a imperial stout, nonic pint glass, is different from a conical pint, is different from a Pilsner or an IPA glass. And then you get into the esoterica of bar stuff. You get your Nick and Nora's, your Coops, your rocks glasses. I love glassware. Because it's all part of the experience of drinking. It's all part of, everything. And so yes, eventually I want craftcomputing.store to be a place that you can go to buy any style glass you want. It's going to take time to get there because I got to design everything. Do I want everything to carry my logo, or do I want to come up with some new branding? And I kind of went a little bit more subtle, where it's just electronics on this one. It's got my logo on there, but you don't have to be a fan of my channel. It's not just like a branded craft computing glass. It's something a little bit more unique. So.
But see, that's cooler than the stuff that LTT is putting on their water bottle type stuff. I mean, I know they don't have barware or whatever, but it looks way cooler. It's it's busy but clean. It's not overwhelming.
It's that minimalist art style that I really, really like.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Oh, but enough about me. Let's go ahead and talk about Apple. Last week, Worldwide Developer Conference was so much and so heavily focused on, obviously, the Apple Vision Pro, their new augmented reality headset. They did announce a couple of big features. We talked about one other feature last week on the show, and that was that a Proton-like compatibility layer is coming to Mac, so you can play your PC games with DirectX 12 and Vulkan on Mac, because Mac doesn't play well with any open graphics standard anymore, other than OpenGL. But there was some other news that was a little bit of a deeper subject that I kind of wanted to talk about. Just didn't have time. And that is that Apple also announced their brand new Mac Pro. Sunsetting the final Intel Mac desktop or PC from their entire lineup. They've now completely refreshed everything from 2020. Took them just over 3 years. But Intel no longer makes processors for Macs. The new Mac Pro, definitely a heavy hitter. It's their M2 Ultra processor, 24 cores. The stock one has 60 graphics cores, or if you want to upgrade, you can get 72 graphics cores, all on unified silicon. Here's a shot of the massive die that the M2 Ultra is. Comes standard with 64 gigs of RAM, which, bravo. Thank you, Apple, for finally including enough memory on a starter configuration. Good God. $7,000 though. It's not cheap. And no one expected, the top of the line Apple Silicon to be cheap. But we were hoping for some kind of a price drop because the Intel 8-core Mac Pro was $6,000. I certainly didn't expect their base model to go up in price, especially with the Mac Studio basically having the same hardware. Now, here's where the story gets a little interesting, okay? We've already seen benchmarks from the Mac Studio with the M2 Pro and the M2 Ultra or M2 Max or whatever the bloody heck post names that Apple slaps onto things. We've already seen the M2 Ultra in a desktop with Thunderbolt expandability, with unified memory, and all the other things that Apple's touting that make it, the fastest Mac ever. We've already seen it because it exists in the Mac Studio. In fact, the new Mac Pro is simply a Mac Studio with PCI Express expansion. There's really nothing else to it. And it's also $3,000 more for the same configuration. You're paying $3,000. Now, I don't know what Apple has included in their metal alloys of the Mac Pro case or how much extra fiberglass you're getting on the PCB. There's not a lot more computer here than there is on the Mac Studio.
It doesn't have to be. The price increase more than makes up for the decrease in sales.
Right?
Yeah, from the people that know what they're looking at, doesn't matter because they're going to always sell just enough to the people that aren't that well informed, that aren't looking as closely, that got more money than brains. And that $3,000 per sale
I would argue and disagree that when you're at the price point of a $7,000 desktop, you do know kind of what you're looking for.
I hope so.
It's a reason the 2013 Mac Pro never did very well. Is people knew what they were looking for, and it was a machine that had PCI Express expandability and more than one SSD slot on board. It was never a huge hit, and it's because people in that price bracket, people in the $3,000 to $7,000 price range, when they're buying a professional studio grade desktop, know what's required to go into it. Well, let's head over to Apple Store, shall we? Here, we've got a Mac Studio with the M2 Ultra, 24-core, 76-core GPU, 32-core neural engine, 192 gigabytes of unified memory, 8 terabytes of storage, dual Thunderbolt 4 ports, and an SDXC card slot. Oh, it also includes 4 more Thunderbolt ports around the rear, 2 USB-As, an HDMI, and a gigabit Ethernet jack. Oh, and lucky for us, headphone jack. Can't forget that. For the low price of $8,799. Okay? Now, watch how interesting this is. I'm gonna highlight some text here. Okay, I'm gonna highlight this right here. I'm gonna go to the next tab. I'm gonna highlight this right here. It doesn't change. There's not a word in that changes. The only thing that changes is the picture. It's an M2 Ultra, 24-core CPU, 76-core GPU, 32-core neural engine, 192 gigs unified memory, 8 terabyte SSD. This one, however, is $11,799.
Nice.
Again, I was expecting a price drop. Like if you want to charge $800 to $1,000 more to go from a Mac Studio to a Mac Pro, I totally get it. I totally get that jump. You get the expandability, but from a cost standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, it's the same damn thing. There's nothing different here. They reused the chassis from the Intel Mac Pro. They didn't even need to. I don't understand where the $3,000 is at here. And I'm someone who quite often has defended Apple in their pricing structure. This one makes no sense.
But we're in like a post crypto boom sort of tech world where the price of these products is sort of arbitrary, it feels like, Like, look at NVIDIA, and I'm not saying that, the 4090 isn't worth its price or whatever, but it certainly doesn't feel in line with what most tech enthusiasts are thinking it should be in line with.
Right.
And Mac has always been a little bit above even that,
They
can just look at what people have been willing to pay since 2019, I guess.
Yeah.
When did stuff really get out of control?
Kind of the first crypto boom. It started to, because graphics cards started going up in price, and that was early 2018.
Right.
Is when the first crypto boom happened, and then we got kind of like an 8 to 12 month reprieve, and then it went through the roof and just stayed there.
And remember, COVID hit, and everybody's like, you know what I'm gonna do? Build a PC.
I'm gonna build a PC with a $1,200 graphics card.
Yeah, and you had all the dads being like, number one, I'm gonna rebuild half my house, and then the other dads were like, I'm gonna build a gaming PC.
I'm gonna put in a new floor and a new graphics card.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just from there.
At least that's what all my friends did.
It just doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't have to. All it has to do is be in line with what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, we're in a weird place with tech, with this industry as a whole. And if I'm being honest, I think a lot of the industry still doesn't know where we're at. Not that I have a firm grasp on it either, but I have some ideas and inclinations about why things are the way they are. Obviously, inflation, inflation and record profits never go hand in hand. Those aren't things. Inflation means people are losing their jobs because businesses can't afford to keep them, not businesses are making record profits while people are making less money. That's not a thing. Anyway, obviously the pandemic has a lot to do with this, with supply line shortages. Basically, there's not a single industry that was never hit by supply chain issues of one form or another, whether it was raw materials, manufacturing space, time, transport. Every single industry was touched. Everything. The joke for a lot of time was, hey, how much can I sell the roof off my house for? Because plywood is through the roof. Man, that's a $40,000 roof I got up there. Y'all need some 2x4s? I bet I can half up on the studs. Totally kind of a thing. But prices kind of started to normalize in most industries. And then all of a sudden prices started going up again, but this time with plenty of supply. and that's kind of where we are there. Now, as far as the tech industry in general, there's also been this resurgence of competition, and like I said, unlike we've seen since the turn of the century, almost 25 years ago now, of every single piece of technology leapfrogging every 6 months. And I mean leapfrogging in a massive way. There was a time you could build a 233 megahertz Pentium 2 and be the biggest, baddest PC on the block. And within 24 months, your friend goes, "Hey, I just built a 1 gigahertz PC." Like there was a 24-month period in which that was a possibility. And to me, it feels like we're there again. And the prices of hardware reflect a little bit about what we saw back in those days of, the all new, Pentium 3 is out. It's a 1.42 gigahertz CPU, and then Pentium 4 and Pentium 4 Extreme editions and whatnot. We went 20-fold in processing technology in about 5 years, from 99 to 2004, and it was insane.
Yeah.
And then it kind of leveled off for a couple of years. Then we were like, well, we've taken single-threaded processing as far as we can go. Let's start putting more processors in. So then all of a sudden the dual cores and some of the early quad cores started coming out. But they weren't leaps and bounds faster anymore. It just had more processing power.
How much of that, and I've been thinking about this, is like, how much of that do you think could be tied to the state of the economy in general versus like the ability to make, well, not the ability to make, but like, I guess like the state of the economy, the power of the economy versus the power of the science and engineering itself. You know what I mean?
I think there's been a lot of breakthroughs in the way we construct a lot of different things. If we're looking specifically at, transistors and the makeup of silicon and whatnot, there's not been any like major breakthroughs in the physical construction of those, but I think the way that people are putting together to get better results out of them has changed. The actual architecture is starting to fundamentally change. And so, yeah, we're seeing, instruction sets, that have long remained at the same speed, or, we got maybe 7% a year instead of 50 to 75% per year. Do you realize from 10th gen, we're almost 2.5 times as fast just to 13th gen Intel? Wow. With AMD from that same time period, it's even more. And with NVIDIA and AMD on the graphics side of things, it's even more than that. If you go back to Pascal, which was just 3 generations ago, we have leapfrogged in a way that's just absolutely insane. And for 15 years prior to that, we didn't see those kinds of leaps. And so part of it is there really is a benefit to buying higher. There really is better technology out there this year than there was last year. And there is an incentive for consumers, businesses, whatever, to go out and buy that newest tech. We as consumers haven't gotten our brains around what the price structure is anymore now. Because for a while, price was the only competitive measure. Because it's like, oh, either I go fast and I buy Intel, or I buy cheap and I go AMD. Get a $100, 6-core processor from AMD, or I'm going to buy a $400 i7. Like, that used to be the market not that long ago. And now all of a sudden it's like, no, they're price competitive with each other. Have you seen the price drops on like 5th gen Ryzen chips? You can get a 5600G for like $130. 6 cores, 12 threads, 7 nanometer 2nd generation Ryzen, $130. And that chip is half the speed of the 7600. Like, it's mental, the what we've gone through, over the last couple of years. And so when we say the 4090 is not worth it, it actually kind of is if you like price comparison and whatever else.
Sure.
You're not paying that much more for that much more power, especially if you compare it to like the 3090, which was the same price 2 years ago. You know, it's not that absurd to say, yeah, the newest thing is just this much more. So consumers and reviewers really haven't gotten their heads around what the new paradigm is for expectations for performance. And I'm actually doing a full video on the 8 gigabytes of video RAM thing. 5600G, 120 on Amazon right now. Oh, and in my area it was next day. It was overnight shipping. We haven't really gotten our heads around what we should expect performance-wise per dollar, because it's been a constantly moving target for so long. We're used to going, yeah, here's last year's stuff. We're 15% better now. Enjoy. These are the results. And then all of a sudden, the prices fluctuate so much, and performance is being doubled up so often. Where do you aim as far as a reviewer goes? Like, standardized tension bench has worked for a long time. They don't tell the whole story anymore. And that's been one of my arguments, and kind of why I started my channel, is I don't believe that one single suite of tests will tell you what's good for a consumer and what's not. But yeah, this is all going to come out in is 8 gigabytes enough in the modern day? And I've got a really interesting take on it that's not going to make some people happy, but at the same time, it's got to be said. So, yeah. Buckle up. Anyway, is $3,000 of an upsell on the Mac Pro worth it? I don't think so, but I also don't have 7 PCI expansion cards that I need to put into my Mac Pro.
Here's the real metric. Mm-hmm. How important is $3,000 to you?
That's a great question.
If $3,000 doesn't mean anything to you, then this might be the PC that you need. Mm-hmm. And more power to you, man. Spend it where you want to.
Yep.
But you know, to me, that's a significant sum. You know, so
right.
I'm gonna be passing on the Mac Pro this time.
Yeah. I want one. I so want one.
Of course. Why not?
Right. I mean, as an enthusiast, of course I want one. But can I justify one? No.
Send some emails to Apple.
Yeah, I'm sure. We
were just down in their neck of the woods. We should have stopped by.
We flew over their campus, for crying out loud.
Could have dropped him some business cards from the plane.
Little airplanes coming out.
Yeah. Pew pew. No, not over there.
Crap, it landed at Citrix.
I was trying to think of some company that we saw, and all I could think of was AMD, and I was like, well, that would be the worst. But I was like, what's another one? The Citrix campus was right there.
You can't use the $600 wheels on the studio. You need the Pro for that. That is absolutely a point. So.
Well, with enough determination, you can use the $600 wheels on whatever you want.
That's right.
And I stand by that.
I can TIG weld.
Look, I'm not a professional, but I can do it, dang it.
Yeah. Oh. Anyway. You know what? We do have a sponsor that we need to talk about.
Heck yeah, we do.
And there's no better way to segue than by just doing it. So, today's episode of Talking Heads is brought to you by Linode. If you've ever needed to host your own servers, you also hosting your own servers also means you get to host all your own problems. Let's just back up a little bit there. And even the most skilled network engineer will tell you should decentralize your network. So why not host your services with Linode? If it runs on Linux, it'll run on Linode. That includes software for most of the tutorials on my channel, like how to run your own ad blocking recursive DNS servers, VPN gateways, your own cloud-based Plex servers, and more. They offer shared CPU plans for as little as $5 per month and can scale as high as you need to go, whether it be virtualized hosting, dedicated enterprise GPUs, or NVMe block storage. Even if you do host your own servers, you can use Linode to keep a backup off-site, because remember, RAID is not a backup. Linode is also expanding at light speed, with 12 new global data centers planned before the end of 2023. Visit linode.com/craftcomputing and get a $100 60-day credit just for signing up for a new account. That's linode.com/craftcomputing, and again, a huge thanks to Linode for sponsoring today's episode. Thank you, Linode.
Yes. Thank you so much, Linode.
Yep. You guys rock, and we can drink for another day.
I spilt my beer, so I'm drinking Buffalo Trace now.
I was wondering what happened to your beer. It's like, man, you slammed that thing.
No, I dumped about 6 ounces out on my chair on accident. Yeah. So I'm like in this big armchair, right? And like right next to me, the cushion, like it flares out when you sit in it. And usually you jam your can in there.
Uh-huh.
And as I lean forward to type something to somebody, I leaned back and my can was completely upside down.
Oh no.
So it just dumped right into my poor armchair. And which is okay. These aren't my favorite chairs by any stretch of the imagination, but
now they smell like beer.
It was a waste of a great beer. So luckily I did pour a little bit of Buffalo Trace before. So
well, there you go. Yeah. Boy, you're really going to be upset at my next one then.
I usually am, though. That's the problem. See, Jeff noticed it very keenly. I decided to all of May. I went dry. I didn't drink any alcohol for the most part. I had like one cheat day, and he noticed very acutely that I didn't make it onto a Talking Heads except for when we were down in California. So
that's right. On the last day of May. He's like, screw it, it's 3:00.
I was like, it counts. I don't care. I started a week early anyway. I did like 5 whole weeks.
You know, we'll go Eastern time, and then there's the whole like daylight savings. Close enough.
I think the thing that blows my mind the most, I lost like 18 pounds just from not drinking as much.
Like, well, Rhett, the reason I had you on the show today is your friends are all concerned.
Yeah, you need to get your weight back on, man. You're not healthy. Way ahead of you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Gosh.
Now, is clear alcohol better for weight gain, or?
No, actually, you need to start doubling up on your pastry stouts. So
pastry stouts, yeah.
Have 2 of these and call me in the morning. And make sure to call your ex at midnight.
Always do, especially after drinking pastry stouts. It's the sweets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This makes me nostalgic.
Anyway, I do have another beer that has been kind of mildly chilling in the fridge. I had it in cellar temp, but brought it up, put it in the fridge. So I'm going to go snag that real quick.
You snag it. I'm not going to talk about Morrowind whatsoever today.
To do that one. There we go.
What up? Check me out. Lounging. Got this big old chair. So how's everybody doing tonight? We halfway through June. Isn't that crazy, man? Was begging for summer, and here we are. Well, we're not quite in summer technically, but Oregon's about to hit some crazy weather, you know, kind of like Morrowind does when the ash storms hit. So
Well, what did I miss there?
I don't know. I couldn't think of anything, so I talked about the weather and then tied it into Morrowind somehow.
I was going to say I'm surprised we're not in Morrowind right now.
We were. That was the last thing I said.
That's great. All I came back to was, so...
There will be a new video hitting Craft Extra soon. If you guys like narrative-driven video games, like choose your own adventure type things, doing a little analyses on the game Road Warden, which I highly recommend if you guys like that type of stuff. It is like a fantasy novel in game format, and it costs the same as like a mass market paperback. So.
I am looking forward to your review of this one. So
it's a great game, man. I've played through it like 3 times now, and it's like there's not a huge variation in like there is and there isn't, you know. It's just like it's all there, and you can kind of hit so much of it if you're determined in one playthrough. But it's interesting how it unfolds. It's just such a unique, fun fantasy world.
Nice.
It's like a fantasy book almost.
I finally got sucked into Hades. Yeah, I know. I've been a lot of my friends know I've been on a roguelike kick for like 6 months. I finally started going through my back library, and I'm like, I'm gonna start just playing all the roguelikes. And so I went Streets of Rogue, Noida, and now I'm into Hades. And holy crap, Hades slaps.
It goes so hard. I can't believe it took you this long.
I know.
I was talking to you about it all the time.
I know. I feel so bad that.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, that game is so good. Yep. It's one of those games, like, I remember, like, and I came at it from a weird way because I had just played Hyper Light Drifter, which is so funny because I went back on my Steam Deck when we were in California, and I was playing Hyper Light Drifter when we were down there, and I was like, oh yeah, this game is really good. And I remember I was Googling, like, what to play after Hyper Light Drifter, and somebody's like, well, it doesn't quite have like the same sort of like Zelda-like exploration aspect, but some of the fighting combat stuff is sort of similar. Hades. And I had seen people on Twitter talking mad about it, but it just didn't seem like my thing. And I was like, whatever. I picked it up on sale on my Switch, and holy crap, I remember like dying right away, and you're reborn, you keep going. I was like, oh no.
I love roguelites.
The dopamine.
that explain the death and resurrection like that.
Yeah.
Where it's and it's perfect in the way they do it, because you are the son of Hades, the lord of the underworld, and you're trying to escape the underworld. And so what happens is you are battling Hades' demons floor by floor as you work your way up, and you're trying to reach Mount Olympus to become a god. And if you can make it there, if you can set foot on Mount Olympus, the gods will accept you as one of them. But until you do that, you're stuck down there. And every time you die, you're cast back into the river of the dead, and you come out drenched in blood, and you'll come out and go, God, skeletons.
Yeah. Dude, and it gets so crazy, and you're like, oh, just when you get bored of like the way combat's unfolding, you're like, oh wait, I can unlock multiple weapons. Right. Oh wait, I can unlock different styles with these weapons. Oh, and it's just like, it just doesn't stop. It has like the perfect amount of depth. Yeah. And I think that they're working on a sequel.
Yeah, they are working on a sequel.
Yeah, man, don't let that one sleep. If you can beat it, it's really worth it.
Yeah,
like,
I've been grinding at it the last 2 or 3 days when I have any off time. I've been playing it on my. I was looking for games that I can play easily on my Aya Neo Air, because I love the form factor. It's super tiny.
It's super good for handheld. Yeah,
exactly.
That's how I played it too. I mean, I played it on the Switch, but you know, like same way. I never played it on the TV. It was just like something I could have with me and pick it up and go for it. And it's like, you know, when you get to where you're making an end game, like every time, it's like, okay, a run takes you maybe 45 minutes to an hour or whatever, but like that's the perfect session, you know?
Yeah.
And there's plenty of easy pause points in between. It's just like, it's perfect for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, when you beat Hades, highly recommend something like Hyper Light Drifter, which scratches that old school Zelda itch.
Nice.
Of like, you know, like almost like Links to the Past, like navigation style.
Yeah.
The combat's a little bit like more intense, but it's not hard. And like, it's the perfect difficulty level in where it's like, yeah, if you die, you're set back a little bit, but it's not like there's not like a game over.
Yeah,
you just keep trying. You know,
what was that? Gosh, there's Moonlighter. You ever play Moonlighter?
Oh yeah, of course. I love Moonlighter.
Yeah,
Moonlighter is so good, and that's what I was gonna say about the games that justify the way you die. Like Children of Morta is one of those too. That's really good. It's kind of that top-down roguelike style. But guys, if you want the ultimate roguelike game,
Oh no.
Caves of Cud.
Oh,
Am
okay.
I right?
Okay.
Anybody played Caves of Cud? Oh my god! Expect a video on that someday.
I haven't played Caves of Cud. Have you played Cave Blazers?
Cave Blazers. I don't even think I've ever heard of that.
Oh, I got one on you. Yes. Stupid simple $5 GOG game. And it's just a roguelike. It is you are spelunking down a cave, and it's not Spelunk, but you're trying to collect treasure in a cave, and random every time, new weapons every time, that kind of thing. But it's a side-scrolling platformer with some combat mechanics, and it's fantastic.
Yeah,
that
sounds great.
A heck of a lot of fun. It's like a roguelike meets like a Metroidvania kind of, yeah. And I think it's
Nice.
$5 on GOG, and you'll easily lose 10, 20 hours into it. So,
dude, aren't games amazing?
Yes.
That's just crazy. What's wild is I went on Twitter. I don't go on Twitter very.
God, this
Dude,
looks
that
good with a
is
stout in it,
beautiful beer,
right?
In that glass
Right?
too, man.
Isn't that good?
Wow, incredible.
So, not to interrupt, but I do have to introduce the beer. Breakside Brewing.
I just had Breakside.
Did you have their
So
black
good.
and tan?
No, I didn't. I had their IPA.
Did you have their barrel aged black and tan?
That wasn't an option, or I might have, knowing how good it looks. Oh, if I could have seen your face, I might have ordered it if they had it.
It's like bourbon and maple syrup is about what it smells like. Yeah, maybe a little sweeter. It's a little lighter, a little sweeter. More like a super rich vanilla than a maple.
Oh. Yo, dude, let's just talk about vanilla for a second, right? Why does vanilla get such a bad rap?
I have no idea. It's the second best of all the flavors.
Right? Behind what? Chocolate? Don't say it.
No, not chocolate.
Behind pickles. You're right.
Right. Behind cheese.
Yeah, cheese flavor?
Cheese is hard to beat.
Cheese? Well, and what's amazing about cheese, you got a huge array of cheese.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like, you a fan of, like, blue cheese or no?
Not particularly.
Oh, man. Oh, man. See, I was wondering, because it's like, man, with cheese, you got, like, that's a whole world right there, man. That's a whole... But see, that's vanilla, though, too. Vanilla is
world of
deceiving.
vanilla. Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying, you know? And when you look at it, okay, like in the ice cream wars, right? Like, you got the pizza wars.
Yeah.
Pineapple or no pineapple. Well, in the ice cream wars,
Pineapple.
you got vanilla or chocolate, right? And people like to talk about, oh, well, chocolate, you know, it's the superior flavor. Vanilla may as well be the anti-flavor. And what I want to say is that if you are willing to open yourself up to the world of nuance that is vanilla, it's just like, man, you got a whole new life ahead of you, reborn into the vanilla game.
See, you know, there for me, and again, I'll come back to like strawberry. For me, it's like I love all flavors equally, which is why I'm a huge Neapolitan fan.
There you go.
Give me my chocolate and my vanilla, and separate them with some strawberry. Done. The perfect ice cream.
See, what I tell everybody, it's like Morrowind. Okay, you can go off and you can mod it as much as you want. You can run 200 mods like Tech Syndicate does, but eventually you always come home to vanilla.
Come home to Simple Ricks. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Thank you for setting that up so
You're
perfectly.
welcome. I couldn't have done it even if I tried.
Come home to vanilla. Come home to Simple Ricks.
Not gonna lie, dude. The Rick Lantis mix-up is like the best episode. It's
Really
so good.
is.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Uh,
I do like the Parasite episode. Like, that one's really good as well. But
oh, wait, the Parasite episode, like
there
where they're in the like thing where it comes out of them and they're like,
no. There's parasites living in the house that pretend to be their loved ones.
oh yeah, that's a
Sleepy
classic.
Gary, how do I know I'm
Yeah,
real?
yeah, yeah. You're right. No, that's a classic. I don't
Yeah.
know why that's never. That felt like such a. I don't want to say obvious. I couldn't have come up with
I
that, but it's like, of course, Rick and Morty, like,
I am
and
really
not that the Rick Lantis
yeah.
mix up isn't. They all
Yeah.
are, but
Right.
it's just.
I'm really a fan of episodes like that. To me, that
Yeah.
felt like a Star Trek holodeck episode.
Does.
Because you have this giant universe where everyone can be anything that they want to be, and you can tell stories as big as everything is, and you condense that story into a living room. And
Yeah, they call that a submarine episode.
right, and I love that type of storytelling. I hate when every single episode has to outdo the one before it, which I think we can get into some Strange New Worlds talk. I know you haven't seen the first, but that's kind of
No,
why I
but
liked season one. You have to watch season. By the way, it's on my Plex server now. So,
hook a brother up.
right. You know what? I'm gonna send you the credentials while we're talking.
Please do, because I watched the trailer, like, when the trailer for season 2 came out just recently, and I was like, dang, I'm missing out.
You really are.
Oh, and just like how excited you were for the like lower decks cameos and everything
Yes.
like that. Yeah, that got me. I was like so
Live
stoked on
long
that. I was
and
like,
prosper, Mr. Bremler. You live also in too.
so good. Star Trek's doing what what Star Trek fans wish they were doing like 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
It-
Um, I will say Discovery could have been the death of Star Trek. It really could have been.
Oh man, Discovery's great though.
But
just
Discovery
so-
suffers from that same problem that I just mentioned of every episode has to outdo the one before it. You don't take time
Yeah.
to just explore a character arc. You don't take time to like
Yeah, but then
no
didn't-
one's leaving this bar until we figure out who killed someone. Like
But didn't like Picard season 3 like every episode outdid the last episode?
yes and no, because there's a couple episodes that take place. There's one episode that takes place in the holodeck, like the entire thing, and it involves a couple of the greatest scenes in Star Trek history. And so yeah, it outdid it, but it outdid it with storytelling. And I like. We don't get 90s Trek anymore because we don't get 26 episode seasons anymore. We don't have time to.
We get the like prestige arcs now.
Right. We don't have time to follow Keiko in her battle against Space Karen for teaching, all-inclusive curriculum. Like, that was an entire story arc, not just an episode, an arc in DS9. It had its own couple of dedicated episodes. And whereas you won't even get a footnote or a mention in modern TV because modern TV is 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Which is why I like so much what Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, it's a return to formula in a way.
It's a return to formula in they're trying to get away from standard action TV formula from today. They're saying, you know what? What if we need to solve a mystery on sickbay? And that's where the whole episode takes place. What if we take an episode and affirm Uhura as a character? What if we what if Spock and his bride to be switched bodies accidentally, and they both have responsibilities? Like let's Freaky Friday this. Like, you get 10 episodes to win over an entire generation of Star Trek fans, and they freaking nailed it. Like, there's not a bad episode in that first batch, including the holodeck episode, which was like the there's a space entity that is telepathic that wanted to play a game, and played a game with the Star Trek crew by making them think they were all characters out of a book. And only two of the characters in the show knew they were being messed with, and they have to like regain control of the ship and rescue the crew and stuff. And it ended up T'Pring, thank you. And it ended up being a really heartstring tuggy kind of episode.
But like that's the best thing about episodic television in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when the serialized nature of like sort of prestige TV began gaining traction. It really happened after things like Band of Brothers kind of took off. Like these mini series did really well. Like, well, what if we could bring this to cable TV and we can do like really serialized, story focused, progressional things. And that was great for a short time, but you know what I find myself returning to time and time again when I want to watch TV? I don't want to go through the 10 episode long story of something again. I want to be able to just go and get my dopamine fix in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep going back to episodic television. You know, it's like I'm going back through and I've watched TNG a million times. I'm going back through the X-Files. I'm going back through shows you know, like other pursuit, like White Collar,
Leverage,
or exactly. You know,
you
like
can you can duck in, you can duck out, you get your dopamine drip. Yeah, it's a,
and you don't lose anything if you fall asleep and wake up
right
a couple episodes later.
My wife and I do the very similar things where constantly in our house we've got something playing on the TV. We binge watch without sitting down and like binge watching, but there's usually something going on. And you know, right now she's going through Without a Trace and Criminal Minds. She's kind of bouncing back and forth between those. I don't do a lot of the cop murder mysteries or anything like that, but I do really like you know, Leverage and shows like that. You know, SG-1 and
SG-1's another great example.
Yeah,
and you know, a lot of these shows are able to deliver really great stories in 45 minutes. You move on with your life, and you get another one. You want to talk about episode that has no bearing anywhere else in the entire... Like, dude, look at TNG's, like, Inner Light or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A whole episode that takes you away from the trials and tribulations of the Enterprise, away from all the characters that you love, introduces you to this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you're done, man... You just like, it's a tearjerker for sure.
Yeah.
You're just like, holy crap, man. And like so many shows have copied that sort of like format, like a whole lifetime in a blink of an eye type situation.
Yeah.
You know? Like even a show like Adventure Time, which has like 8.5 minute episodes animated, right? Like they've done stuff like that too.
Yeah.
You know, that's what makes stuff like Futurama really easy to watch, because you can just pop in, pop out, do your thing. Like you know, as far as like some of this prestige TV stuff goes, like for example, like I love Andor, Star Wars, you know, and I'll talk about it all the time how great it is, and you know, at this point I've watched it twice through, but it's a little difficult when you want to go back and watch it. And maybe this was a little different when this type of television was newer, because I remember going back and watching something like Band of Brothers all the time, picking and choosing the Band of Brothers episodes that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
But with something like Andor, and maybe it's just I'm older, I don't know, but it's like I wanted to go back and watch some of it, and it's like, man, there's a lot to get through to get to the scenes that I want to see. You know, I just wasn't able to quite do it the same way that I can with an episodic television show. I don't know, man. That's cool. I'm a big fan of the way that they're doing that with Star Trek. Like, you know, hitting it with Lower Decks, hitting it with Strange New Worlds, like...
Yeah. No, it's
what every Star Trek fan has wanted for a long time, you know?
We just wanted that universe to continue. It's what every Star Wars fan has wanted for a long time, is we just want continuations of that universe. But what I'll say about what you said about Discovery... It's what every Morrowind fan has wanted for a long time.
Exactly, 100%. And what I'll say about what you said about Discovery could have been the death of Star Trek, and like maybe you're right. I don't know. It's like I'm a pretty easy audience for the most part, and I'll fully admit this. Like, I want to be on your side when I'm watching your show. But it's like, if Enterprise didn't do Star Trek as soon as I go against you, you turn me up. No. If Enterprise didn't do
and we're done.
Star Trek then like Discovery was better than Enterprise every step of the way, you know, like, and Enterprise did some interesting things.
A lot of people look at Enterprise with rose-colored glasses anymore because Enterprise was the only thing that we got post Voyager. It came out completely after Voyager was done, and so like the swath of and in fact Voyager gets looked at with a lot of rose-colored glasses too. Like, oh, remember when every single new Star Trek that has ever come out, there's been, I will never give up the original series. Next Generation, screw those guys. And it's like, oh, that's really good. Like, let's start one. DS9, it's a space station. They can't go boldly if they can't go anywhere. Oh, DS9's actually really freaking good too. Voyager, who are these? Okay, it's all right. And then, but then it's like you circle the wagons and you go like, this is my Star Trek. And then one new one comes out. You're like, I will do. And then there's a new Star Trek, and you're like, okay, we'll accept Enterprise, but Discovery, you stay away. That is totally the fandom that and there's a lot of parallels with like Star Wars fandom and whatnot when it comes to that. Because remember when the prequels were hated?
And now they're almost loved.
Right.
Man. Like, it's so weird how that's around because I've been a prequels apologist my whole life, and all of a sudden, that's not unusual. Like, and maybe, and that, it's so weird, and it actually bothers me a lot. And that's what I was going to say earlier about jumping on Twitter for the first time in a couple weeks, is like, it's so toxic the way that everybody just thinks that they know what's best about what's coming out in general.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at video games discourse, and oh my god, can you believe the shitstorm that stirred up when Todd Howard said that Starfield was going to be locked at 30 frames per second. And I'm just like, who cares? 30 frames is enough.
So is Tears of the Kingdom, and there's not one PC fanatic out there who is defending against that. Not one.
Because it's stylized, Jeff. It doesn't need to be 60 frames per second. It looks like a cartoon. I can have cartoon frames. Dude, these people, I swear to God.
Then neither does Super Meat Boy.
I'm telling you, man. This is how they think. And I'm just like, and all of a sudden, it's making me think about Star Wars, which is like one of these things that, I mean, when John Boyega first showed up in the trailer for Force Awakens, the internet erupted with negativity. A black stormtrooper? How does that make sense? Justify that.
The same way you justify Tamura Morrison was the original stormtrooper.
Yeah. See, genius. I've never even thought about that, but that makes perfect sense.
I never understood what the hate was. What are you talking about? The only stormtrooper we've ever seen with their helmet off is Luke Skywalker when he goes, you're a little short to be a stormtrooper, aren't you?
Yeah. Name
another stormtrooper who has ever taken their helmet off. Who was not impersonating a stormtrooper in the first place.
That's a great point. I've never thought about that before, but that you nailed it,
Bigot's gonna bigot.
Dang it. It's been so long coming up with other arguments.
I love that I blew your mind with a prequel argument. Like, that's...
And I'm the prequel apologist, man, and I have been for so long, dude. Like, and Kenobi comes out, and I'm just like, this is the perfect follow-up to the prequels. I loved every second of it, man? Like, yeah. And people always have something to say about it. And it's the same thing with Star Trek. Like, and I'll be the first to admit, like, DS9 is really good. Do I connect with it the way I do TNG? No. Voyager is great. Do I connect with it the same way I connect with it with DS9? No. Enterprise has a place in my heart because it was on TV when I was at a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching Enterprise before I liked Star Trek. Does that make sense? Not really. I didn't like Star Trek until at like 4th season of Enterprise, and then all of a sudden I was like, yo, what, TNG? Like, this is great, you know. And that's where I started my whole journey.
Yeah,
with a YouTube video of all things, singing Picard, man. And so the fact that they can continue to put out things that are so historically revered, that are looked at so kindly by the eyes of history, but like the people in the moment can't just shut up and watch it, man. And that's why, like, Discovery, I don't know, you know, it's like I watched Discovery and I'm like, it's different from the Trek that I love, but it's way better than Enterprise was, and I watched the crap out of Enterprise, you know. I don't know. Yeah, red alert. Here we go.
Yeah. That wasn't quite rant-worthy enough.
No, I didn't quite get there. I did accidentally drop an F-bomb when talking about Todd Howard, but
as one does.
That's just like, I can't believe that people are complaining about 30 frames per second. Granted, like, I'm the guy that, like, well, you know, film takes place at 24 frames per second, and that's all we need. Why do you need more in a video game?
I will say, there are so many hang-ups with PC culture when it comes to elitism. That
FPS is one.
FPS is one. And it's been that way for a long time, and it's gotten worse over the last 5 years, where, you know, if anything drops below 90, it's basically unplayable to me.
No, like, the human eye can't even detect 90 frames per second.
It can.
Can it, though?
Yes, it can. Yes, it can.
I'll admit to being one of the inferior humans then.
Because I will say...
all I need is, like, 40 or 45 frames.
Here's the deal.
All I need.
Here's the deal. Your eye cannot necessarily discern a difference between 60 and 75. What it can tell a difference between is 60 to 120, 60 even to 90, and 90 to 120. The other thing that your eye can see is inconsistent frame rates. And I've always said consistency trumps overall speed. If I'm getting an average of 240 but a 1% low of 70, that's jarring to your eye.
Yeah.
I would much rather get an average of 90 with a low of 74, because you're talking millisecond, 1 millisecond differences between frame delivery at that point. And same thing, 144 with a low of 100. Like, I'm totally cool with that as a benchmark. If I see, and this is the reason I always test Borderlands 3, or now Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, is that game engine has a problem going from scope fire back to hip and back to scope. Is it will always stutter. And it's very noticeable. It's noticeable in game, but it's a consistent stutter. And so it shows you a worst case scenario when I'm benchmarking cards. And it's a great way to demonstrate that. But it's also a great way to demonstrate when low frame rates are acceptable, because that stutter happens at the same point every single time.
Yeah. See, and Green Protagonist says here in the comments, Linus proved that higher FPS does scale ability in game. Reaction can improve.
Yes.
And to that, what I say is, like, if the difference between 120 FPS and 60 FPS, like, what I want to understand is, like, how does that... Your reaction can improve, but how does that quantify into your ability in the general public?
Into a better gaming experience.
You're not going pro based off of the difference between 60 and 120.
Right.
In fact, if you're playing a game, how does that even impact your MMR rating?
Right.
Like, it doesn't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you suck at the game, 60 frames isn't going to make a difference.
Right.
You suck at the game.
What I will say is...
You need to study the maps. You need to study the game. And you just got to get better at predicting what people are doing. I've played games at 30 FPS my whole life, and I'm not going pro anytime soon.
Do you know what you're arguing here? You're arguing that gear doesn't matter. You're going...
doesn't.
No, but follow me, okay? You're arguing that gear doesn't matter. That if you're going to produce the art, just go out and produce the art. Doesn't matter what camera you have, what guitar you're playing on, what drums you have. But at a certain point, it does. Because...
Depends on what you want to do.
It kind of does, but also it kind of doesn't. Because if I grab... if a professional guitar player walks into Guitar Center, they can make a $120 guitar freaking sing. But that's because they've spent a lifetime learning how to make that instrument sing. And I guarantee when they get on a better instrument, that instrument is still going to sound better. Versus a beginner, you're going to suck just as much on a $120 guitar as you are on a $3,000 and a $10,000 guitar.
Yeah, but a $10,000 guitar isn't going to make you into Jimi Hendrix.
It's not.
You know what I'm saying?
But if you're 3/4 of the way there, it will make you better than you are now. And that's where gear starts to matter.
The instrument example is exactly where I was going to go myself. But it's like, dude, Brian May from Queen built a guitar with his dad as a 10-year-old. Never played another guitar after that. He recorded every single Queen album, played every single Queen show on that guitar. And unless the guy was a freaking professional luthier, I don't know, maybe he was. I don't think he was. I don't know. When I hear you built a guitar with your dad as a 10-year-old, I imagine that it's got to be like halfway ass. The guitar doesn't look great. I don't know. Maybe it's great. I'll admit that I have no idea. But I'm just like, Brian May played the same guitar his whole freaking life. He didn't upgrade to some upscale $10,000 Gibson.
Right.
Like, and okay, I get that. That's Brian May or whatever, but...
And I guess I'm posing this argument to the wrong person because you use... Sorry, I'm not going to continue that.
No, but it's true. And but that's exact. I was going to make the same concession myself. It's just
I will say, as a musician, I'm going to relate this to something that not a lot of people will understand, will get. I am a clarinet player. I've played on dozens of different clarinets, from intermediate to like $4,000 clarinets. When I was starting out, would I have been better served by playing on a beginner clarinet, an introductory wooden clarinet instead of a plastic starter one, or should I have jumped straight to a professional clarinet? There would have been no difference. There's no difference in my learning curve from one to the other. What I will say is, once I was at the skill level that you're starting to pull nuances and technique and certain sound profiles and everything else, I spent $400 on a mouthpiece. I spent $350 on a barrel. And the way I bought that barrel was I ordered 10 from a company, and I played those 10 different barrels to see which barrel sounded the best. And then I sent the other 9 back. So I do understand from a musician that the sound you personally are going for can be influenced heavily by your gear. I get that as a photographer and a videographer. I get that as an IT professional. Yes, I could probably have done my entire job from my past 15 years with nothing more than a Chromebook and a smartphone. Would I get the results that I wanted to get? No, because there's better tools available, there's better workflows available. And at a certain point, gear absolutely matters. Because your skill set exceeds the production quality of the gear you're using. Now,
can you get to that level with a rental clarinet from Becox or whatever, wherever you rented your clarinet from as a kid? You know, like
you can get to a certain level, and once you once you have that skill, you can make just about any instrument sing, and that's kind of what I was making the guitar,
right,
comparison. I could grab a beginner clarinet and I could play Artie Shaw's Clarinet Concerto. I could do
because your embouchure is what's important. Your skill,
your
level
technique,
is
your
what's
skill
important.
level, right?
And that's I guess what I'm getting at with this whole frames per second thing is
what I will say is some instruments will not produce the sound I wanted, though. Some instruments I couldn't do slides. Some instruments just they wouldn't respond the way you wanted it to. The spring weight wasn't right. The hole wasn't just the right diameter to be able to slide off, and so you would get cracks and weird overtones and things like that. Versus that wasn't the sound and the exact music that I was trying to produce, and my skill was exceeding the instrument. And it is a thing.
And what's interesting is that it's like that's probably even more pronounced in today's world, where you can hop on Amazon and buy even cheaper instruments than what was probably available when you were learning the clarinet. You know,
Rett, you were here the day I ordered 2 flutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. My daughter wants to learn how to play the flute. I, way in a past life, was going to attempt to be a music teacher. And so I know a lot of instruments, specifically woodwinds. And I was never terrific at the flute, but I never spent a lot of time on it, so I went, screw it. I might as well just order a flute and learn it, and then try to teach my daughter. And so I ordered 2 flutes off Amazon for $195. With cases and everything. And they're not bad. They're really not bad. No, I'm not, a concert flautist, but I am a concert clarinetist, and I will say, from someone who has spent good time with a good number of woodwind instruments, those are not bad instruments. And I've made the argument, precision manufacturing has far exceeded, the learning curve in a number of different industries. Musical instruments is one of them. You can get some dynamite musical instruments for under $300 now.
And those are some interesting videos on YouTube when you find I played a $1,000
better sax
versus, yeah, exactly. And then they go and buy the cheapest thing that they can on Amazon and compare it. And it's just like, obviously that's a professional with a professional skill. But that's what I was getting at with the frames per second thing. It's like, obviously when you get good at an instrument and you want to keep progressing and you want to stick with it, like scaling up your instrument, that's a natural progression. And everybody knows that. They tell you that when you pick up your instrument for the first time, like, this is a beginner instrument. This ain't going to take you all the way to Carnegie Mellon Hall or whatever. I don't know. I couldn't think of a venue. Is that even a venue? Look, it's not going to take you all the way to...
If I were a Dolly Parton fan, Carnegie Hall is definitely where I want to go.
Okay, well, Dolly Parton's
wonderful. So. That was probably a bad example on my part. Who doesn't love Dolly Parton?
But they're very clear. At least, like, I remember being in 6th grade, and I joined a band late in 6th grade, and they were like, "Look, we're going to run you these instruments, and if you get good, then you scale up, and you scale up, and you scale up." And I did, and I eventually, now it's like I've got professional level gear. But when you're playing a game, I want to know, what is like, if we're talking professional scale instruments or whatever, what is that? How does that translate to FPS? Like Green Protagonist is saying, it does make you better. And I don't doubt that. I'm sure it does. If I'm playing against somebody who's got 30 frames and I got 120 frames, I have an advantage.
Because you'll see 4 to every one. Now here's where I'll break this down. For those who have not seen the LTT video where they basically pitted gamers against themselves in a skill competition of reaction time inside of Counter-Strike, they found that gamers were more accurate and had faster reaction times with higher frame rate monitors than with 60. And so they tried 120 and 240. And at 240 FPS, you're getting 4 frames for every 1 frame that is delivered on a 60 FPS monitor. That means you have more time to react. Your reactions will be faster, and you can more easily track where the target is and then pull the trigger. Everyone's score stayed the same or went up across the board. There was no one who scored worse on a 240 FPS monitor than on a 60.
But what was the average curve, like, like in terms of performance increase? I haven't seen the video, and I admit that,
out of 10 shots, they saw an increase of like 20 to 30%, if I remember correctly. Like out of 10 shots on each, so 10 at 60 and 10 at 240, they saw maybe 4 hits at 60, and they saw maybe 7 hits at 240.
But could that be justified as like, we warmed up on 60?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Because it's like, I guess I'd have to watch the video myself to understand the testing model that they did. Because it's like, yeah.
Now, what I will say is,
when I go and play Valorant, I go and hit my warm-ups first. I go and do my aim labs first.
Absolutely.
And I'm my first couple aim labs, dog crap, man. Yeah. I'm awful.
Got to get your eye.
By the time I do 3, 4, 5, okay, I'm ready to play. Let's do competitive. Here we go. I'm not going to embarrass my team.
What I will say is, there's definitely something to training with a particular set of equipment, and I've seen this in a number of different industries, not just speaking music, not just speaking tech. I've seen this, when you get comfortable with the machine, when you get comfortable with the equipment that you're using, you know what the tolerances are, you know what your reaction time needs to be, and I'm not speaking entertainment, and I'm not speaking art. I'm speaking like,
that's everything.
I used to run CNC, and I could make 12 feet worth of CNC tables absolutely sing and bend to my will, and I would get in a rhythm with those machines because I knew exactly in my brain the timing of that machine, cleaning off, restacking stock, getting the next one started, starting to clear off the next. And
now we're getting into like evolutionary biology here, because that ain't just CNC machines, man. That's as basic as swinging a hammer.
Right. That's just getting in rhythm with a workflow and whatnot. And I would get into a workflow where I had 2 6-foot by 6-foot tables that would slide in and out of the CNC machine, and on each table I would load 27 blocks. That was my standard layout. I made wood floor vents for a couple years, and what would come to me were blanks. They were literally just like wooden blocks. They were either 8, 10, or 12 inches long. And we would stack them in rows of 3, 3, 3. And then I had 3 total columns. And so I had 27 blocks on a table. That was my average layout. What would happen was 2 saw blades would come down, and the table would pass under the saw blades. And the saw blades would cut the louvers for the floor vents that I was creating. Basically, if you put in a wood floor, we made vents to go with your wood floor. That was our bread and butter. Anyway, this CNC machine would cut so many vents and then move on to the next section and cut so many vents and then move on to the next section. While one table is running, you're loading up the next table. And getting it all set up and making sure everything's tight to the edge, so your tolerances are right, your gaps are right. When one table is done, it slides back, and then on the CNC you would say advance to next table, and then that table would slide in. Well, then you've got to clear the sawdust off of table 1. You've got to measure your tolerances, make sure your machine is still aligned with where it should be, because we're talking, 12 feet by 3 feet. 12 by 6 by 3 was about the working dimensions, working volume of the CNC machine. It was giant. And I had a tolerance of 5 thou. So had to be pretty precise. And so every single table that was ran, I would check my 3 measurements for thickness of the louver, end gap on one side, and then center gap between the 2 veins that went like this. Your center gap has to be a certain size as well. I would measure those 3 gaps, make sure the machine's still on track, stack everything up, put it aside, clean the table off, walk around the back of the machine, sweep up the sawdust, put it into the dust collector, walk around the front, have just enough time to blow my face off real quick before I turned around and walk back to the front of the machine, stack the new stock blocks onto table 1, have just enough time to blow my face off with the air gun before I could turn around and hit start on table 2, and then start the whole process again. And 30 seconds was all you had. It took 30 seconds to machine all those blocks. And I had it down to a science. And that was just for like the standard stuff, let alone like, you know, custom cuts and custom CNC programs and working with the engineer to do things. And, you know, I was good at it. I really liked what I did. But, boy, how did we get all the way here?
30 frames per second, my
30
friend.
30 frames per second. What I will say is going back... Oh, right, training on particular equipment and getting good enough with that equipment. What I will say is, for someone who's never picked up a game before, there is no difference. You could game at 20 FPS because they have no frame of reference for what is smooth. When I was a kid, 20 FPS was kind of average. You know, 30 FPS in Doom, chef's kiss. You're running on a Pentium 90, my friend. You know, I was recently reminded of how poorly Doom runs on a 386. You know.
And see, and I guess that's the interesting thing is it really, you know, you kind of said it. It's like consistency is kind of an important aspect because I'm thinking about the way that I play a game like Counter-Strike.
It also depends on the game that you're playing and how you're playing it and what your experience wants to be.
And I'm not a reflexive shooter anyway. Like I don't have if I'm playing competitive Counter-Strike, I'm not gonna be the one doing the flick shoots and 360 no scopes and all this sort of stuff. Like I'm the guy that's shooting you because I knew where you were exactly the moment that you were there. Yeah. Because like that's what I have a level of map awareness. I have a level of game awareness. And in fact, most of the time when I'm playing Counter-Strike or a game like Valorant or whatever, I can't use my direct vision to play the game. I really can't. And that's something that you see, I don't know, not in competitive games, but in a lot of types of situations like that, where you're sort of like indirect vision is taking point. And it's not like I'm not looking at the screen or whatever. I'm looking at the screen, but I might be looking at my map and I've got, you know, my cursor up here and I'm looking down here and I'm controlling this. Your indirect vision, your peripheral vision is more sensitive than your direct vision. And that's how I play those games. I'm never looking exactly where my cursor is because I've never had the reaction speed to be that type of gamer to begin with. So I don't know. I guess when I'm hearing that they did science on this and I'm bitter about it, it's just like, I guess it's because I've never been playing at 240 frames per second. I don't know. I never will probably, but
I'm still perfectly happy at 60. Yeah, I like monitors that go faster, but they don't need to because I don't play competitive shooters. I'm not in games to be competitive. I'm in games for entertainment and escape. That's why I play games. It's why I've always played games. It's why I will always play games. And so do I need to get that, you know, extra 4 milliseconds in Counter-Strike no, I don't. You know, 60 seconds is 16.6 milliseconds. Or 60 frames per second is 16.6 milliseconds. 120 frames per second is 8.4 milliseconds, and then down from there. Once you get beyond 120, you're talking about sub-millisecond improvements. And you can go down to, you know, 244 FPS is what, 2.3, 2.4 milliseconds, something like that. Yeah, it's faster than 8 milliseconds, but the difference is depreciating returns. And
I guess when you put it into perspective of like millisecond response rates, like that's a pretty big deal when I'm recording music and stuff like that. Like, and I've got a pretty high tolerance for large millisecond latency, but yeah, obviously, like the less is better, especially when you're recording music. But I don't know,
Right.
that's a little bit of a different game. You're not reacting necessarily to what's
Well,
happening on screen. You're sort of
if you're recording music, absolutely it's a difference because even 2 or 3 milliseconds can throw you off of
yeah,
a beat or a rhythm if you're trying to anticipate or accurately come in, or there yeah, it does make a
yeah.
difference.
When you talk about how your body gets used to stuff, and I remember going to work for a professional music studio, and I I had confessed to them that I had been recording with like a 12 to 16 millisecond delay, with 12 to 16 millisecond latency, and they were just like, "Yo, we tried to aim for less than 4 in
Yeah.
the studio."
Yeah. You were a
And
whole
I'm
frame
like,
behind and they were at 240 FPS. Like, that's what that was. That's that difference.
but it's funny because you listen to all the things that I recorded or produced, and it's like you can't tell. But ultimately, what I think it really boils down
Sorry,
to is that
240
I
FPS
I
is
just got used to it.
sorry, 240 FPS is actually 4.1 millisecond because 60 FPS is 16.6 millisecond, 16.67. And so
When you put it in perspective in music, I guess I never thought about it that way in
right,
terms of
and
that.
4 millisecond you can deal with. 16 millisecond,
That's
it's longer than you want it to be. That's the difference between 60 and 61 beats per minute.
that. Yeah,
I mean, that's and
Jesus.
that is human perceptible. So
It is.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough that I got made fun of at the studio for like a whole year.
Rightfully, you were at 16 millisecond walking into a studio.
Well, I'm telling you though, like when I recorded music, I just got used to it, like, and I could compensate for it. So that what
Yeah.
I was playing was in such a way that when I played back and heard the recording, it was right.
Okay. Yeah.
I just got so used to it. It's like a drummer playing just in the pocket, or whatever.
Mhm.
Like you and I guess that's where I was coming from. It was like, well, okay, what I'm playing if I'm playing exactly with the click, it's not right. So I'll just compensate.
Yeah. No, I've
You
never been able to play with any amount of latency in a monitor ever. Like I can't.
Yeah.
It physically pains me. And I'm not really exaggerating that statement.
Honestly, it takes to like 24 milliseconds or more to like really throw me off.
Oof.
Oh, but again, I think that comes from just being rhythm section my whole life. The idea of like, oh, just dial it back, just dial it back, just pull back, or bring it up, bring it up, bring it up.
Right. Yeah.
Like
You're used to playing on the tail or the front edge
yeah,
of a rhythm, whereas me as more of the bass player, or in some cases the soloist or lead player, you're expected to be on it,
right there, yeah,
right there, and where this is gonna hurt some drummers' feelings, but drummers are often reactive
yeah,
because you don't want to be wrong. You're more noticeable when you're wrong.
yeah,
And so if you notice a soloist is playing behind the beat, you need to then play behind the beat to match what they're doing.
yeah,
However, if you play in front of the beat, you're wrong.
yeah,
So there's some truth to that, personality wise and whatever else. So yeah,
yeah.
of course the lazy drummer is okay with 45 FPS.
45 is a bit much. Oh, well, I
You
guess
said
we're
30.
talking games.
You said
You're
30.
right. You're right. Sorry. I was thinking milliseconds.
Right.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but
sorry.
anyway, wrapping this up, like
Yeah.
there's not a single
30
person
30 is totally
alive.
fine.
There's not a single person alive, and if there are, they're probably wrong. Who is going to argue against Tears of the Kingdom getting Game of the Year? A game that runs on the Nintendo Switch, which is Kepler era mobile hardware for mobile phones. It's an NVIDIA Tegra T1 that runs at 720p sometimes.
And I don't think you can argue against whatever, because it's like, number one, it's not competitive. And I don't know, and I guess this is where I always come at it from. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sounding like a broken record. I'm sounding like a Luddite in so many ways, but it's just like when I played PC games, man, for the longest time, I was happy to get 20 frames per second, you know, if I wanted to play the latest games. Like, I remember getting my cracked copy of Rome Total War and running it on my freaking GeForce 3 and just like scraping by, having to keep my army sizes like so low, like just to run the game, or to just avoid the battles altogether and just play it like I was playing Civilizations. And I don't know, man. I just never bothered me. If I wanted to play a game, it didn't matter how bad it ran.
Counter-Strike, you're going to get a better experience. And I will say, in general, first-person shooters, you're probably going to get a better experience on faster frame rate monitors. Adventure games, it matters a little less. Role-playing games probably matters a little less. Racing games probably matters a little more. You know, it's what is the game that you're playing, and what is what is your expectation and acceptable level of latency. And you know, we're going in chat right now. If 30 FPS is 33.2 milliseconds because it's twice as long as 60, and every measure is half of that. So again, you know, 8.3 is 120 frames per second. 45 is 24 milliseconds. And so the difference between 60 FPS and 45 FPS is as much as it is between 120 and 60 FPS. To put that into perspective.
Yeah.
It's exponentially better as you go up the scale, but also it's exponentially worse. So if we're talking 30 FPS with a low of 20, you're talking frame rate variations of in the tens of milliseconds. If we're talking 240 FPS with a low of 120, you're talking 3 millisecond differences, which is still perceptible.
Still think, I'll admit that my perception on this has been altered a little bit since thinking about it this way, but I would still like to see like top tier, world tier like Counter-Strike player going up again, like going head to head with like a good Counter-Strike player. One locked at 30 frames, one locked at 240. You know, I want to see like what do the frames really matter when you're that level against somebody who might be a little bit less. Is it going to take you above that?
That would be interesting. To take a couple Counter-Strike teams and make them swap between 240 and 60.
Right?
Because,
exactly. You know,
because like I didn't want to come fully out and say, but Linus's experiment was very unscientific. It was very anecdotal. This felt better, and we did slightly better in
Green Protagonist did come back and said like, you should watch the video. It's not the most scientific thing ever. Mm-hmm. He equated it to Mythbusters, which I do think Mythbusters, they were pretty good about science and all that. But I like the idea. I like the idea of
they have some results they can publish. So
you know,
suck it.
And I like the idea of like the punk aspect of it. Like we're trying to do science and it's not perfect.
Right.
I'm gonna go and watch the video because I am.
But we're making you think. And that's what I always loved about Mythbusters and their approach to the scientific method. And that's honestly my draw to Linus and the way they do things. And it's kind of how I do things. Is I'm not necessarily looking to be the only answer or the source of information. I'm getting you to ask better questions as a consumer.
Plus it's yet another metric. It's another point in the graph. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be the be all end all. It can be a piece of the puzzle.
Right.
It can be a piece of the solution.
Right.
And if you got 10 people's average result, well, you can go and find your own average result within that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's this whole thing. I mean, it's useful. It's not meaningless.
Right. But yeah, no, my whole thing is I love, not in a narcissistic or bigoted way, but I love telling people that they should ask why. Why is something this? Why is something that? Because why leads to expanding knowledge. It leads to you trying to find out why. Why is 240 better than 60? And is it always the case, or is it sometimes the case? Are there some cases that make up for the lack of cases? Is there, and down the road we go. Hey, Tech Potato. Hey, I'm currently at 42,000 feet. Finally caught it live again. Hey, hello from way above the earth. The last plane that I took got to 10,000 feet, and then, okay, we're starting our descent.
Straight back down.
It's an hour and 20-minute flight. It's my last one.
Ian emailed me personally to say that I wasn't awesome. So,
Rett is awesome. I've met him, and that's bullshit. That's amazing.
And I subscribed to your newsletter, man. Come on. I mean, I get that it was the free tier, but come on.
Oh, that's great.
Classic British humor, They're just always joking over there.
I know. I love that.
Always good for a laugh.
I love that when Ian was at my house, I'm like, well, I know you're not much of a beer drinker, but let's try this one. I've got the Goose Island Bourbon County Stout, the gray bottle, which is made with Earl Grey tea. And he goes, did you pick that because I'm British? And I went, I might have.
It's funny. Doesn't Earl Grey, I feel like it only... Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Ian can clarify this. But I feel like it only has a connotation of being I don't know. Do we get connotated in America with British because of Star Trek more?
No, Look, tea was a big thing. I don't know if you were...
Well, yes, I get that,
right. Right. And the thing with Brits is if it was a big thing at one point, it's still a big thing. It's still a big deal. Nothing ever dies.
They can't let it go.
They can't let it go, East Indian Trading Company is alive and well.
The monarchy.
Yeah, right. Oh, I wish I could be sitting behind Ian when he sees this. But no, I believe Earl Grey was still very popular even before Jean-Luc Picard, and in fact, there's a larger likelihood that the Brits started going against Earl Grey because Jean-Luc Picard is French.
Patrick Stewart wanted Captain Picard's tea to be Lapsang Souchong.
Lapsang Souchong, yeah.
Which was Winston Churchill's tea of choice.
My tea of choice. You mentioned this on a Talking Heads 3 years ago.
Right,
I've been drinking that tea ever since.
It is so good. And what annoys me was there was a grocery store in my neighborhood that sold it at regular Twinings tea price. I could go and buy it for the same price as English breakfast tea, or Irish breakfast tea, or Earl Grey or whatever. And now they don't sell it. And if I want to order it on Amazon, it's like $10 a box. $10 a box. What? Get out of here. I mean, it's a great tea, but...
Ian says, I'm a serious Shakespearean actor. There's a great anecdote about how Patrick Stewart's agent said, "Hey, we got a call for this sci-fi show, Star Trek. They're trying to reboot it. Gene Roddenberry asked for you specifically, and I don't think it's going to make it past one season, but you might as well fly out to LA, get a paycheck,
make some money,
go back, do your plays, do whatever else." And so Picard came in as Patrick Stewart, and Patrick Stewart was very much a Broadway Shakespearean actor, very regimented, very rigid. I show up, I do my job, I expect the rest of you to do your job. God damn.
Yeah.
And whereas LA culture's a little looser,
A little different.
a little looser, and we have that same difference like East Coast, West Coast personalities. You know, East Coast, 5 o'clock if you're working late at the office, it means you can unbutton your blazer. West Coast, it's like, hell, 4:30 I'm cracking a beer, and 5 o'clock means I can put on shorts. Like, we just have different mentalities about what is proper and serious and everything else. And then you go to Hawaii and it's a whole different thing. But anyway, from season 1, I guess there's this famous now rant that Patrick Stewart gave on the set after like a 12-hour day about he had never been forced to work with such incompetent, disrespectful, unprofessional group of actors in his entire life, and was genuinely like pissed and I want out and screw this contract, I'm walking, because Jonathan Frakes and Brett Spiner and whatnot would crack jokes in between.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really big thing. If you're ever on TikTok, you get on the Star Trek TikTok, and they talk about that all the time, about how they eventually cracked the egg that was Patrick Stewart and brought him out into the, not saying he wasn't the charming human being that we all know and love today, but maybe he would be slightly less charming and lovely than we know. But yeah. Just a great story all around, because Next Generation, transformative for everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
Not just Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Us too.
Yeah. Did you ever watch the show that made Brent Spiner famous? This is a tricky one.
Probably not. Doesn't sound familiar.
Brent Spiner was a recurring guest character on a show called Night Court.
Never even heard of it.
Classic early 80s television. One of my favorite shows ever. Gosh, hold on. So it was set in New York City. Harry Anderson, comedian, juggler extraordinaire. John Larroquette.
Yes, you're saying so many names of which people that are commonplace knowledge and that I even know, that I am intimately familiar with and absolutely positively can identify on the street.
I'm appalled that you don't know who John Larroquette is. That deeply offends me on a pretty serious level.
You misunderstood me. Of course I know who John Larroquette is.
Okay.
Of course I know.
Who's John Larroquette?
The man. He's in Night Court, man. Come on.
See, this is why I can't argue with you, is you just go in a circle of bullshit. Constantly. This is John Larroquette.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've seen his face before.
Yeah.
And there's Anchor Steam, baby.
There's Anchor Steam, right? The beer that's going away forever.
No, what?
You didn't? Yeah.
That's my dad's beer.
Yeah, Anchor Brewing, touted as the oldest craft brewery in America.
No.
Which is arguable, but yeah, Anchor Brewing out of San Francisco, they are ceasing national distribution and killing a couple of their main franchise beers, one of which is Anchor Steam beer.
Dude, yeah, my dad lived in San Francisco for years, and for his 55th birthday, it was, like the mid-aughts, and my stepmom realized you can order this shit online and have it delivered. He hadn't had it in decades, because it was like the time, it was a time, like if you wanted to have a specific beer, you had to be where that beer was made.
Yeah.
But we ordered it online. We got cases and cases of this stuff delivered to our door. And what am I well, anyway, that's sad.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking. That's almost as sad as when like the Rainier Brewery went away.
Right?
I mean, Rainier survived.
Yeah.
Rainier survived the destruction and sale of its own brewery.
Yeah.
Dude, I bought a 6-pack of Pounder Rainiers at Costco the other day for less than $6. So
You still owe me a case.
Yeah, you're right.
pub
I
beer.
was thinking that. I was
still
thinking
owe me
that
a
when
case of pub beer.
I was at Costco. They didn't have pub beer,
Yeah.
so I figured I had to go to a regular grocery store where they sell the peasant stuff. But...
Yep.
I didn't forget. I was just thinking that the other day.
Still a good looking beer in this glass in particular.
It really is. It really is.
The light beers, they don't give the contrast to the etching, but the dark beers like really make it pop. So can you? But could Anchor really be considered like the oldest craft brewery? Like, when did Anchor come out? I thought it was like really early. Yeah. Again, it's
what's a craft brewery considered in this? It's
contested
regard?
Because technically any brewery that started in America would be a craft brewery.
And are they just like, yeah, because it avoided like ownership by a giant conglomerate or whatever, like
right
kind of like indie game studio or whatever at this point, you know?
Yeah.
Although even now, like indie game companies take money from major publishers and they're like, you're AAA now, you're not indie. I thought Anchor came out in like 1890 or something, or like somewhere around there.
Yeah, see, Yuengling claims that they're the oldest at 1829.
Jesus Christ, that's old.
Right? Let's see.
Wait a minute.
Sam Adams.
And where are they from? Where's Yuengling from?
Yuengling is Massachusetts?
What?
Yuengling, hold on. Craft beer, Yuengling. Gosh, where's he at?
Quickly. Philly. Somebody says
I'm
it's
looking.
From Philly.
Philly. Okay, yeah. Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Not even Philly. Pottsville, Pennsylvania is Yuengling.
Yeah, okay, but they knew it was a PA beer, so good on you, Michael.
I knew it was East Coast, and
but
honestly,
is Pottsville going to be?
I missed it by one border, which is not bad for the East Coast. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I bet you Pottsville is going to be like, you know, freaking Beaverton to Portland or something like that. You know, it's going to be like some suburb of.
Yeah. Anchor Brewing, founded 1896.
I was close.
Right. Lone Star Brewery, 1883. Genesee Brewery, 1878 from Rochester, New York. Coors, 1873.
Yeah, okay. But Coors ain't craft? What is this?
It's not. It's oldest breweries in America.
Okay.
I'm just going down. Okay.
Okay.
Leinenkugel, 1867, Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin.
The hell is Leinenkugel? Is this still around?
Oh, yeah. It's the domestic lager before domestic lagers were a thing. Leinenkugel is the original, like, domestic lager.
Can I still buy a Leinenkugel somewhere?
Yes.
Really?
How do you not know Leinenkugel?
I don't know, man. Okay. I gotta drink beer with Yakima Valley hops.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Frankenmuth Brewery, 1862, Frankenmuth, Michigan. Shell's Brewery in New Ulm, Minnesota, 1860. Stevens Point Brewery, 1857, Wisconsin. Fredericks Miller's Plank Road Brewery, 1855, Milwaukee. Anheuser-Busch, 1852, St. Louis, Missouri. Pabst, 1848.
He's still living high off that blue ribbon.
That's right. Minas Brewing, 1845. Yuengling, 1831 or 1829. Those are disputed.
Good Lord.
Yep. So
1829.
But Anchor, it's on the list at 1896.
That's impressive, man.
Yeah.
Arthur Morgan was still alive.
Ian says, LOL, 1800s. Very cute America, signed Europe.
Oh, hey. Good for you, Europe.
Hey, Europe. How are all your colonies doing? We still have all of ours. And some of yours, as it turns out.
I'm sorry, Europe. Is being old going to help you avoid climate catastrophe? Okay, we're all in this shit together. Yep. We're all doomed. So, oh, that's cute. We have a history that goes back to the very first genocide, and not like this pretend one that you guys did.
Boy, if we weren't demonetized, we are now.
Oh, come on, YouTube. It's comedy.
Where's Pot Tucker, Patriot, or Duff? Yeah. Spectre says, Rhett, I'll try to bring some Leinenkugels out to the next PDX LAN.
I'll be there.
There we go.
Yeah, man. I some of these I'm listening to, I'm like, and these are still around. I've never... Leinenkugels is one I'm like, okay.
Tech Potato says, yeah, but you don't let them vote. We also don't make them pay taxes. Maybe that was a key.
Yeah, see, and Chris here says, Weihenstephan Monastery Brewery, almost 1,000 years in Germany. Yeah, but Weihenstephan is sold in my hometown, man. I can go down the street, literally right here, and I can buy their beer. So the other breweries are, you know... But also, yeah, obviously, 1,000 years. Why are we talking about the ages of our countries? We get it.
Yeah.
We invented airplanes, for God's sake. Why are we talking about getting drunk?
Not only did we invent airplanes, we also landed on the moon. The highest you've been is about 42,000 feet.
I think there has been a British astronaut.
USA!
I don't get very patriotic unless all of this old-timey Europe bullshit comes out.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, I get a Boston accent and I get real patriotic.
How has he not heard about Leidenkugel's Honey Vice? I have no idea.
I don't know. How does everybody know about this and I don't?
I'm surprised you don't know about Leinenkugels.
Look, but I've drank Anchor Steam before, though. So.
Right, but Leinenkugel is kind of like right up there with like Rainier. Like the prestige that you hold Rainier in is kind of the prestige that Leinenkugels has. It's like that's my brewery.
And where's Leinenkugels from?
Wisconsin, isn't it?
Maybe that's
Milwaukee?
it, right? See, he says Leinenkugel with Rhett's last name, but is Leinenkugel, that can't be a German word. Although in Wisconsin...
Are you sure?
Maybe.
Yeah, Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin.
That whole area is German Lutheran.
Leinenkugel does not sound German enough.
God dang, maybe it is. I don't know.
It's right there with Frankenmuff.
See, I'm of the German heritage. We skipped the whole Lutheran aspect in the middle of America.
Right.
We brought all of those things with us, like the little, what do they call them? The pinwheel wraps, the little, with the pickle and the mayonnaise and the ham. You know, we brought those with us over here, but we skipped being there and just came over here. So,
yeah.
We got the little pickle wraps, but. It's Prussian.
I love how Ian's now trying to justify how we got to the moon. We couldn't have done it without all those German defectors.
Hey, that's true.
That is very true.
Well, if you guys would have won the war without us, you could have got to the moon first, I guess.
Right. Had you been able to hold London.
You know, though, can't give it up. The British did their part. They gave us the technology that led directly to radar technology, which was pretty paramount.
Yep. I do love the general story of World War II. Everyone's fighting around the U.S. The U.S. goes, that's everyone else's problem. And our shipping lines are hit, and we're like, well, that's only hitting, personal businesses and whatnot. And then they bomb Pearl Harbor, and we're like, all right. Enough of this crap.
I heard it. There's a saying that's popular in historians. Is World War II was won with Russian blood, British grit, and American steel. Because without the British to hold the line for as long as they did, and they did, I mean, the Blitz was no easy thing, and the constant bombing raids and rationing, they went through some serious stuff. But the Russian cost in life was pretty astronomical, but we came in and just out-manufactured everybody that's ever existed up until that point.
Yep. No, U.S. manufacturing, I mean, it was at an all-time high, and now we're kind of at an all-time low again, as far as domestic manufacturing goes. But there's a reason you're like, oh, no, that's a Jeep, but it's a Ford. It's because, hey, Ford, you're going to make Jeeps now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now y'all got spy balloons. Yeah, that's right. We could have won the war if you weren't selling to both sides. Hey, that was only for a couple of years, okay? Capitalist gonna capitalist.
Yeah. Well, look, you only have yourselves to blame for losing the American colonies. So that wouldn't have been an issue if you could have kept a rein on.
Yeah. I do love a good tea party.
Amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember during the 100 Days of Protests during early mid 2020, everybody's going crazy, burning police stations down and stuff, and people are like, this is outrageous. Our country isn't built on protesting. It's just like the Boston Tea Party is regarded as the single most destructive
and effective protest of all time.
And when you value, and especially like historians look at the way that they had stored and shipped tea up until that point, and it was this sort of like not vacuum sealed because they didn't have, but almost like dried, compressed version of tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just epic amounts of tea. It wasn't these loose leaf tea bags that they just chucked in it was epic amounts of compressed
tea in compressed blocks into crates, and we busted all the crates open and then ripped apart the blocks and shucked them into Boston Harbor.
Yeah. And
it's like, no, even if you recover the bricks, they're going to be useless. Was the whole idea of it.
Yeah. It's just crazy.
Yep.
Wild history. What are you going to do?
Ian, we need to get on a show again sometime, because that was fun.
Yeah, next time you're not on a plane.
Yeah,
you got a free Wednesday.
Or next time we are on a plane. Hell, like, we could be on a plane at 6 p.m. Pacific time.
Tell you what, next time Jeff's indisposed and I need a guest host to help me.
There you go.
We're gonna get Ian for this.
There you go. Be the Rett and Ian show. Oh God.
Good luck, craft computing.
Morrowind, Rainier, and cider. See y'all at LTX. Most certainly will, my friend.
Absolutely.
Good times. And if anyone else is going to LTX, I will be there as well. Signing autographs, kissing babies, whatever else. Selling merchandise across country lines. I'm probably going to bring a couple of cases of pint glasses with me and maybe some other merch. So, hey, come look me up. I'll have some swag there. Anyway, if you like this show, thumbs up button. Subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Follow me on the social medias at Craft Computing. Rhett, any good of the order? Any...
Oh God, I don't know. Keep an eye. Go subscribe to Craft Extra if you haven't done so already. It's our sister channel, and clips are going to be slowing down there for the time being, but you can expect some additional content. Going to be slowly trickling out. I got some videos coming out. I know Jeff had some ideas that he wants to throw up, and if you want some things that we can't put on Craft Computing, that's the place that you're going to find it. Otherwise, I'm hanging tight on Twitter at Rhett is Awesome, or you can go to my website, rhettisawesome.com, where some of my other things are put up from time to time. Not always, but, from time to time.
You seem to always have a pet project going on, and that's coming from someone with a lot of pet projects.
Yeah, exactly. I can't not have a pet project. I don't know what's wrong with me.
I'm going like, I'm rebuilding my deck, and I'm creating my own merch with laser engravers in my garage, and I'm currently remodeling the interior of my camper. Where do you find the time to...
Yeah, it's always the time before you get to it is unlimited. Yep. So you just spread yourself as thin as possible and hope for the best. That's ADHD, so...
Hold on, Alice says super chats. I'm not seeing super chats. Is my...
Oh, there was one.
Alice, yeah, Alice had one. Yeah, do we want to hit a couple of these real quick? Because I think there was one
Couple.
more.
I don't
I've
have
got
any.
one from Alice, one from Green.
Can you read
And if
them?
we-
Because I'm not seeing them.
Let's start with Green because Green went first
Go
quite a
Green.
while ago.
$5 from Green Protagonist. Returnal. Roguelike third-person shooter. Little like 3D Metroid. A little bit like a bullet hell. Award-winning.
From the PS5, it's on Steam, and he mentioned it outside of a super chat. And Returnal is one of those games. It looks really great. Skull might be putting some of these in Discord if you want to take a look. But it looks like a great game. I highly recommend
Nice.
it. And if it's on Steam, we have little to no excuse. Alice Osaka says, if I can find it again, Asako, sorry, $5. But the real father of craft beer was Jack McClefe. I don't know. I tried my best to say that without sounding like an idiot. Jack McClefe? Jack McClefe, who founded New Albion Brewery in 1976. Interesting. 1976 craft beer. That really feels to me personally like when the craft beer movement got started.
The 70s, yeah.
It was definitely, yeah, right? Like, but
It's about when Sierra Nevada
Yes.
started coming out. It's about when
Right, so that's
I
how
mean,
I don't
you
understand
got
how they say
Stone
that-
in like 1990.
Right.
So yeah, the late 70s to early 90s was kind of the hey, we can make our own beer? Okay.
I mean, I remember like going up like in mid 2000s. This is a whole, we're getting out of whack here, but like mid 2000s, going up to Seattle and being like, wow, there's a whole craft beer scene that isn't accessible or relevant or anything in Oregon. You know, it was like a whole other world.
Anyway, back then it was all individual little cells of scenes.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did Skull say something?
Cool. cool.
We got them both. Thanks, Skull.
Okay, cool deal. I don't know why they're not showing up in my chat. I'm on the YouTube studio page. I'm on the studio stream page where all my I have nothing. I'm scrolling. I don't see them. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I saw them the whole time, but we got really involved in Star Trek and frames per second talk.
As Tech Potato says, best to buy merch, not super chats. You can buy bottle openers for $8. Craftcomputing.store. Pint glasses for $13. We've got rocks glasses for $14. We've got whiskey stones for $20. We've got coasters, 2 for $12, I think.
Gorgeous.
2 for 10. No, 2 for 10. That's right. Yeah, we've got our circuit design. We've got our logo. We've also got a brand new floppy disk coaster, which has actually been selling really well as of late.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah, go check those out. Anyway,
Ian says it's McAuliffe.
McAuliffe?
I think I was close. I'll have to watch the video again.
I don't
what
think
said, but
that's not what I. It's not
I
what I
said
heard.
McAuliffe or something. I was close. I don't think I said McAuliffe, but I was close.
Whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We'll play it back later and find out.
Whatever.
Good luck to me.
Cool. All right. Anyway, that's going to be episode 289 of Talking Heads. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news. As always, I'm Jeff,
I'm Rhett.
and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, all.
Cheers, everyone. Crap, where's my page at? There it is. Bye. All right, we're out.